Before his death in 1991, Dr. Seuss consistently declined offers to sell the film rights to his books. However, following his passing, his widow, Audrey Gesell, began entertaining several merchandising deals, including clothing lines, accessories, and CDs. In July 1998, her agents made a significant announcement. The film rights to this film would be auctioned. The terms were stringent. Suitors had to be willing to pay $5 million up front, 4% of the box office gross, 50% of merchandising revenue, 70% of book tie-in profits, and music-related income. In addition, any actor considered for the role had to be a similar stature to Adam Sandler or Jim Carrey. In September 1998, Howard officially signed on to direct and co-produce this film with Jim Carrey starring in Ron Howard's 2000 film, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
Oh. That's it, I'm not going.
You'll shoot your eye out, kid.
Merry Christmas, you filthy animal.
Oh my God!
Where's your Christmas spirit?
But what do I do if I fall off the roof?
Hey everyone, welcome to Chills and Thrills. Connor and Chris here, and Merry Christmas to all. We are giving you a special episode here, dropping it on Christmas morning, and today, for the Christmas holiday, we are doing Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. And this is one of those films that, when I was younger, this was just a masterpiece to watch. I loved watching it leading up to the Christmas holiday. I liked watching it, having it on the TV in the background while we were opening presents. I still do that to this day. Like, I wake up Christmas morning, throw the Grinch on as we're opening Christmas presents. Me, my little girl, her mom, it's a tradition that I've always liked. And Jim Carrey as the Grinch, it's just something that is stained in my mind and memory from being a kid and watching this film. And it's coming up, here soon on its 24th, soon to be 25th anniversary film. This is just a masterpiece in my mind of a Christmas film, and I love it. Chris, I don't see how you have different feelings about it.
Yeah, I hold it in very high regard, and it was certainly one of those movies where once you get to kind of December and Christmas season, man, I remember watching the Grinch DVD. Just felt like there was at least one year where I was just popping that thing in like it was candy or something, just watching it all the time. And that was at the same sort of time where I was really into sort of the Star Wars prequels and the Lord of the Rings movies were out, kind of just before, around this time. DVDs had a lot of special features, so I would watch whatever they had there, all the making ofs and all this sort of stuff. And for me, it was just as interesting to watch that stuff for How the Grinch Stole Christmas as it was for Attack of the Clones. So it's a classic for me. And Jim Carrey has always been great. Ace Ventura, The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, all of that was fantastic. And he really he runs away with it with the Grinch, and it's just a really, really good nostalgic time and a really fun Christmas movie.
Absolutely. And I mean, it doesn't have to be Christmas for me to pop this on. I mean, I'll pop this thing on in the middle of July or something and have a good time with it. We just got some snow on the ground up here, and it's always great to have snow for Christmas and stuff like that. It just makes you feel a little more in season, especially when you can watch these movies. You can throw like the fireplace on, even if you got like a little fake fireplace or something under the TV, throw that on, pop the Grinch on. It's snowing outside. It's a great feeling when like everything comes together like that for the holidays.
Indeed. And I'm in Florida, so we've never had the snow, but I've been in the States where it's had the snow around Christmas time, but I'll take Florida.
Well, yeah, like I said, I do electrical work, so come these cold months, I've been outside for every day for the last 3 or 4 weeks. So it's when I'm working outside, I'll definitely take that Florida weather over this.
Yeah, I don't envy you being outside in the snow.
I'll give you a little background on the Grinch, and we'll keep going and get into it. There's a lot to talk about on this film. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas is a 2000 American Christmas fantasy comedy film directed by Ron Howard, who also produced with Brian Grazer, from a screenplay written by Jeffrey Price and Peter S. Saman, based on Dr. Seuss's 1957 children's book of the same name. This marked the first Dr. Seuss book to be adapted into a full-length feature film. It is the first live-action adaptation and the second adaptation of the book following the 1966 animated TV special. The film is narrated by Anthony Hopkins, and the film stars Jim Carrey as the Grinch, with Jeffrey Tambor, Christine Baranski, Bill Irwin, and Molly Shannon in supporting roles. The story revolves around the Grinch, a grumpy green recluse living in Mount Crumpet, who despises Christmas and the joyful residents of Whoville and sets out to sabotage their holiday celebration. Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas was released on November 17, 2000, by Universal Pictures. The film received mixed reviews from critics upon release, with praise for Carrey's performance and the film's visual effects, while its dark humor and tone were criticized. It emerged as a major commercial success at the box office and spent 4 weeks as the top film in the U.S., and it became the highest-grossing film of 2000 domestically and the 6th highest-grossing film of 2000 worldwide. It also became the second highest-grossing holiday film of all time, behind Home Alone from 1990. Until it was surpassed by the 2018 animated version of The Grinch produced by Universal's Illumination Animation division. At the 73rd Academy Awards, How the Grinch Stole Christmas won Best Makeup and Hairstyling, in addition to earning nominations for Best Production Design, Best Costume Design, and Carrey's performance earned him a nomination for the Golden Globe Award for Best Actor in a Motion Picture, Musical, or Comedy. So there's a lot of background on the Grinch.
Yeah, it definitely left a mark. It is wild to hear that it was the highest grossing film in North America, bar none, in 2000. It's like, golly, it's like you miss the days where that could happen, and it wasn't just some sequel or some superhero movie or something like that.
Well, back in I think the name Jim Carrey had a lot to do with it, because back in the
Oh,
90s
yeah.
and early 2000s, anything attached to his name, I mean, especially being a comedy portion of a film, like people flock to the theaters to see him in like Ace Ventura and whatnot.
Yeah, I believe 2000 is famously the last or one of the last years where the top 10 best performing films of the year was not majority sequels or remakes, reboots, franchises. You had, like, I think, like Castaway, Gladiator, How the Grinch Stole Christmas, like a lot of non-sequel properties. I think Scary Movie even made it into the top 10, things like that. It's like, then once you go after that, it's just sequel. It's the 2 this, the 3 of that, the 5th of this. It's wild.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, this was re-released this year in theaters on December 3rd and December 6th. And I tried to look up showtimes, just to be nostalgic and actually see it in theaters. And they were only doing showtimes around me at like 2 in the afternoon, and it's like, well, who the hell has time to do that? I'm at work.
Yeah, I never saw the original in theaters. It was a DVD only for me. It was one of those things where, like, I couldn't tell you, like, the Christmas specific movies. I don't think I ever saw any of those in theaters as a kid growing up. I don't think I ever, like, I was actually like Elf and all of those. I don't think I ever, like, it just never timed out right. That's like, oh, we go to the movies to see a Christmas movie. It just never, I don't remember it ever playing out that way for me as a kid.
I did end up, I believe it was last year or the year before, I went and seen Elf in theaters for its re-release. And I mean, I had a good time. I think that movie's funny and whatnot, but I wish I could actually, on one of these years on an anniversary release, maybe I'll get to see The Grinch in theaters.
Yeah, I saw the 2018 Grinch in theaters because I was working. I was a manager at a theater at the time, could see it for free, and a cute girl asked to go with me. So I mean, she was like, "Can we go?" I was like, "Yeah, we can go."
I have never seen that one.
Huh? It's good. It's tough. Like, it's tough to kind of do another adaptation of the original story and then make it different from the cartoon, but different from the live action movie, but also still being the same story. That's a tough thing to do. But it was like, if you like, it's much more like kid skewing than the Jim Carrey movie. But I mean, if you were a parent with kids, like if I was 10 years old when that came out, it would have probably become my new favorite Christmas movie, you know?
Well, I've seen the 1966 the animated shorter film, and then I've seen this one, and I read and heard some bad reviews on the 2018 one, so I never got to it. So maybe I'll have to give it a chance here since we're around the holidays. Maybe just throw it on and give it a chance.
Yeah, watch it with the little one.
Yeah, absolutely. She loves watching this live action Grinch, and I mean she'll be 3 in January, and she'll be, it'll be on the TV, and she'll just walk around the house going, Grinch, Grinch, Grinch.
That's great.
Oh,
That's great.
she already likes it at 3, so we must be raising her right. And anytime Godzilla's on the TV, she loves it. So we're doing something right here.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Why don't we get into a trailer and a plot synopsis for The Grinch, and we'll come back as always with some numbers, some fun facts, and dive into our favorite categories of the film.
Sounds good.
Universal Pictures and Imagine Entertainment invite you to experience the magic of the classic story as it comes to life like you've never seen before. In a place where the Christmas spirit is everywhere.
Have the best Christmas ever!
Well, almost everywhere.
Counting down the Christmas clock. Oh, young, big, small.
Blast this Christmas music! It's joyful and triumphant.
Jim Carrey is
The Grinch! I must stop this Christmas from coming!
from Universal Pictures
But what would I wear? Ho-ho!
and Imagine Entertainment.
Forgot about the reindeer. Action! Brilliant!
Mr. Grinch, I myself am having some Yuletide doubts.
Don't care.
Maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas.
Maybe if you can reunite with the Who's and be a part of Christmas.
Grow up!
If you think you know the whole story,
What if it's all just a misunderstanding?
This could change my entire outlook on life!
Really?
No.
you don't know Grinch.
This is nuts! I'm going to throw up, and then I'm going to die!
Jim Carrey in a Ron Howard film. The Grinch.
Uh-oh, somebody's fabulous!
As the Who's of Whoville prepare for their beloved Christmas celebrations, the Grinch, a bitter and misanthropic green creature who resides in a cave on Mount Crumpet, despises the holiday and plans to ruin it. 6-year-old Cindy Lou Who, delusionized by the town's obsession with the materialistic aspects of Christmas, has a chance encounter with the Grinch at the Whoville post office, where he saves her after she falls into a mail sorting machine. Curious about the Grinch's hatred for Christmas, Cindy learns from the townspeople that he was abandoned as a baby and adopted by 2 elderly sisters in Whoville. While in school, the Grinch had a crush on his classmate Martha May Whovier. Though Martha reciprocated his feelings, Augustus Mayhew was jealous that Martha liked the Grinch and not him, and frequently picked on the Grinch for his hairy appearance. In an attempt to impress Martha, the Grinch tried to shave his face but ended up cutting himself. When Augustus and his other classmates laughed at him during a Christmas celebration, he snapped, declaring his hatred of Christmas. Ashamed, the humiliated Grinch fled to Mount Crumpet, vowing never to return. Determined to include the Grinch in the Christmas festivities, Cindy nominates him as the town's holiday cheermeister, much to the dismay of Mayhew, now mayor. Reluctantly, the Grinch agrees to attend, seeing an opportunity to confront his childhood tormentor and potentially reunite with Martha, now Cindy's neighbor. At the ceremony, the Grinch participates in various events and starts to enjoy himself, but his mood changes when Mayor Mayhew gives him an electric razor as a cruel reminder of his traumatic past. To further humiliate the Grinch, Mayhew proposes to Martha in front of everyone, offering her a new car as an engagement gift. Furious, the Grinch lashes out at the Who's, accusing them of valuing Christmas only for its materialism. He then shaves the mayor's head, lights the town's Christmas tree on fire, and goes on a destructive rampage before returning to the cave on Mount Crumpet. Learning that the Who still plan to celebrate Christmas with a spare tree and unshaken spirits, the Grinch hatches a plan to steal all their presents, decorations, and food while they sleep, determined to ruin Christmas once and for all. Disguising himself as Santa Claus and dressing his dog Max as a reindeer, the Grinch descends into Whoville on a high-tech sleigh. He starts by sneaking into Cindy Lou Who's house. When Cindy catches him stealing their Christmas tree, he lies, pretending to be Santa taking their tree for repairs, and escapes. Methodically, he strips the entire town of its Christmas goods, stuffing everything into a giant sack and driving it to the top of Mount Crumpet, intending to push it off. On Christmas morning, the Who's wake up to discover the theft, and the town is devastated. Mayor Mayhew accuses Cindy for giving the Grinch the opportunity to ruin their holiday, but her father, Postmaster Lou Who, defends her, reminding the town that Christmas is about more than gifts and decorations. Inspired by his words, the Who's come together, join hands, and begin singing Christmas carols, showing that their spirit remains unbroken. As the Grinch prepares to push the massive sack off the mountain, he hears the Who's singing below and realizes that his plan has failed. Struck by the true meaning of Christmas, the Grinch's heart literally grows 3 sizes, and he is overcome with emotion. Just then, the sleigh, along with Cindy Lou who had climbed aboard, begins to slip over the edge of the cliff. In a moment of heroism, the Grinch saves both Cindy and the sleigh, returning all the stolen Christmas goods to the town. Back in Whoville, the Grinch apologizes and surrenders to the authorities, who pardon him despite Mayor Mayhew's demands for his arrest. Fed up with Mayhew's selfishness, Martha May returns his engagement ring and professes her love for the Grinch. In the end, the reformed Grinch invites the Who's to celebrate Christmas in his cave, where he personally carves the roast beast at the feast, now embraced as a part of the Whoville community. All right, how about I jump into some numbers here for you, and we'll get Chris with the inflation of them. So the budget of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas, it had a budget of $123 million with a box office return of $346.5 million.
Yeah, and so in today's dollars, that would be roughly a $225 million budget, which sounds insane for a Christmas movie this year. And then that would be a $633 million worldwide box office return, again, roughly. But yeah, it's hard to imagine. Like, you hear 123 million, it's like, oh, that's even now 123 million seems like it would be a lot to bet on a Christmas movie. But you know, to imagine it relatively, like, it'd be like greenlighting a $200 million Christmas movie. I'm pretty sure that movie with Dwayne Johnson and Ryan Reynolds just came out called Red One, or not Ryan Reynolds, Chris Evans, came out called Red One, and it had like a 200 to 250 million budget, and it was a total box office flop. And so it's hard, and people are like, why would they spend that much money on it? It's like, yeah, it's not the same as it was 25 years ago, where a Christmas movie could be one of your biggest movies of the year. You know, it's just, we're not in that era anymore.
Yeah, it was in theaters for like a month, and then like 2 days later, it was announced that it was on Amazon Prime.
Yeah, I mean, I think it didn't do well. Well, and I think it was originally like an Amazon Prime thing, but then they made a theatrical deal for it. And of course, once it landed on Amazon Prime, they were like, oh, it did like 50 million views in the first week or first weekend or whatever. And it's like, yeah, because everyone knew it was basically a streaming movie that was going to be on streaming, and you were just throwing it in theaters for show. So no one's going to make the trip to go see it in theaters. If you say you're going to do a streaming movie and then you say it's coming out in theaters, people know that within 30 days you're going to have that bad boy on your streaming service that they're already paying for, so they're just going to wait to watch it there. You know, it's this sort of, you know, I'm not going to go into a tangent about how they're killing the movie theater industry, but, you know, it's all part of that.
Absolutely agree with you. But I mean, this film did good. I mean, it pretty much tripled its budget. I mean, just under tripling its budget. So I mean, for a Christmas movie, I think it did well. And I mean, once like VHS and DVD sales
Yeah.
came out, I mean, this movie did
Yeah,
wonders.
that was indeed, that was back in the day where the home video market was quite robust. So and even the TV broadcast rights deals for movies like this. I remember hearing once that if your movie broke $100 million in North America, that immediately puts you up into a higher bracket for like your default baseline TV rights deals to play your movie on whatever channel. And they're like, and that was the same thing. Like if it broke 200, then like your baseline license deal would go up even higher. The bigger your movie was in theaters, the bigger all of the kickbacks were going to be as it hit those different platforms and video rental stores. And I mean, gosh, even talk about video rental stores, there were entire movies back in the day that weren't even dependent on necessarily their video sales. They were just dependent on people renting them a lot from the video stores and the kickbacks that they got for the rentals. So, there was all these factors for movies in this era. And yeah, this one definitely was a huge success.
I have a number coming up for that I'm sure you'll like to hear what it sold combined and stuff for DVDs and VHS. So
yes, I'm very excited to hear that.
Absolutely. I'll start knocking them out here. This was the top selling movie ticket of 2000, selling 50 million tickets in the year of 2000 for the theaters. So that's a massive number.
Very impressive.
It is rated a 6.3 out of 10 on IMDb, a 49% rating on Rotten Tomatoes, 46% rating on Metacritic, and here come our Google users to save us with a 81% Google user rating. I don't know what Metacritic and Rotten Tomatoes are smoking, but I mean, I would definitely easily give this film a B or B plus. For a Christmas or holiday movie, it's an A plus all the way.
It's called being movie snobs. That's what it is. That's what it is.
Well, I need to become a movie critic on like Rotten Tomatoes or something because they need to do better.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like if they don't trash 80% of the movies that come out, then somehow they're not legitimate or their opinion isn't valid. Like it's a Jim Carrey comedy Christmas movie based on a children's book. Like by what criteria are you saying this is a trash heap? I don't know.
Just a bunch of haters.
Exactly.
I'll get to this one. The word Grinch is said 67 times in this film.
Yeah. I mean, you could have, that tracks, It could have been a lot higher than that, and I probably would have believed you too.
Yeah. Here's the good one I found that How the Grinch Stole Christmas was released on VHS and DVD on November 20th, 2001. And in its first week of release, it sold a combined total of 8.5 million home video units, including 3 million DVDs and over 4 million VHS copies, making it the best-selling holiday home video title at that time.
That's impressive.
The film became one of only 4 titles alongside Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, Shrek, and The Mummy Returns to sell more than 2 million DVD copies during their opening weeks. It also achieved the distinction of being the second highest opening week home video sales for any live-action film following Titanic. And in December 2001, Variety reported that the film was the second biggest selling home video release of the year, with 16.9 million copies sold and $296 million in revenue from those sales.
Golly, yeah. That tracks, man. You got to think about that, about how much per unit you're selling a VHS at the time or a DVD at the time for. And at that point, the whole big thing with DVD, the whole big selling point at the time was that, well, VHS wears out over time and a DVD will look just as good every single time you play it. And so the idea they had everyone believing was like, well, if you buy a movie on DVD, you truly have it forever. It was like you've truly got it and it looks great and it'll always look great and you'll never have to get it again or whatever. And, little did we know there'd be, 2 more formats beyond DVD, but still it was so it was big for people to buy it and own it and have it. owning it and having it on your shelf was big, and DVD seemed like it was like the better way of doing that than a VHS, which could break up, tear up, degrade the more you watched it. So I mean, yeah, there was this big cultural thing pushing people to buy movies on DVD.
Yeah, so to put it in perspective a little bit, I mean, say, it had a budget of $123 million, and including the box office return and what they sold in DVD and VHS copies, they're looking at pretty much about $643 million return on an $123 million investment. Now, I don't know what kind of money they spent to, get the film onto VHS and DVD. But I mean, you're still probably easily tripling or quadrupling your money.
Oh, the margins on a DVD or VHS unit of what they sell it for versus what it takes them to produce it is extremely good. It's better than the margins that the studios get for the ticket at the theater, because that they're almost splitting almost evenly essentially with the theater exhibitors. The DVD and VHSs and Blu-rays and all that stuff, it's much more it's a much higher profit margin for the studios than that.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. $2 to make the DVD, and we're gonna sell it for $12-15.
Yeah.
So I'm sure.
And plus that this movie probably sold a ton of Christmas merch. That there was probably a ton of like toys and apparel and all kinds of Christmas related things, seasonal merchandising deals and tie-ins for this movie. There was.
Oh yeah, I absolutely. And now, again, we're past DVDs, and now all the Blu-rays they've sold of it, and 4Ks or digital copies. I'm sure that number as well.
Get the new Steel book, all that stuff that they always sell people on.
Yep, I mean there's Grinch.
Netflix is going to cut us a check to have it on Netflix for a few months, and then we'll put it on HBO Max for a few months. All that stuff is a deal. It's a contract. It's a check being stroked. So
Yeah, I'm sure this film did just fine.
Infinitely monetized.
Oh yeah. That is all I have for you on the numbers section, but I have some good old fun facts for us as always that I can riff through. According to Rick Baker, the prosthetic makeup Jim Carrey wore took about 2 hours to apply and 1 hour to remove. And Jim Carrey revealed in the Graham Norton show that he felt so confined and uncomfortable in the latex skin that he sought counseling from a CIA agent who taught him torture-resistant techniques.
Good Lord.
You'd never think it could be that bad.
Well, you do look at the thing, and I'm sure the repetition of it. I don't know how many days of shooting and how many times it was applied, not applied, but I'm sure that anything can be a little monotonous. But if you're imagine even just your regular job. If they're like, okay, before you do your work, your 8 to 10 to 12-hour work day, you've got to get into this full body, makeup and bodysuit and have all this stuff applied to you for however long, and then you've got to go perform and be at your best at your job for 8 to 10 hours a day. It's like, golly, yeah, it does sound like a little bit of a slow torture.
Yeah, and I mean, compared to some others that we've talked about, being in a makeup chair for 2 hours doesn't seem terrible, but I'm one of those people who I'm not very good at sitting still, especially when you're putting prosthetics and whatnot on my face and skin, stuff sticking to my skin. I'm sure I would get irritated as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure being paid millions would make me have all the patience in the world. But in his defense, Jim Carrey does seem like someone that if he doesn't have some kind of ADHD, he probably, he seems like a very high energy, impatient kind of a guy, a little bit of a manic individual. So maybe asking him to sit still for 2 hours as makeup is applied, maybe a little bit different than someone who's maybe got a higher patience threshold.
Well, I know some of the past films we've talked about where people like in Friday the 13th, where the guys have had to get the makeup done and stuff, they would just, half of them would take like sleeping pills and like nod off in the chair or something and have them wake them up when it was all done.
I mean, I know if 2 hours of my workday was sitting in a chair getting makeup applied, that'd be a blessing for me.
I would take it. I'd be in a warm trailer instead of outside.
Yeah.
The line 6:30 p.m. dinner with me, I can't cancel that again, was improvised in the film by Jim Carrey.
Huh. Well, I'll go ahead and say that's one of my favorite lines of the movie. That's one of my favorite jokes, and it's such a it's a great improv bit. But I love that. I've always liked that. That line's always stuck with me. I can't cancel that again. I love it.
Absolutely. The way he performs that, I'm glad that they kept that in. They could have been kind of like dicks and been like, that's not in the script. Like, let's just scrap that. But I'm definitely glad they kept that in the film because it gets a good laugh out of me.
Yeah, plus as a single guy, I can relate to that line, you know? uh, uh, but yeah, I hear that very much that the director often told him to kind of just riff and go kind of nuts with the role. And so I'm sure there's a lot of improvised mannerisms and deliveries and things like that in this movie.
Absolutely. I believe I get into some of them in some more fun facts. And if not, I definitely will get into them before we end the episode. No movie other than this has featured so many characters in heavy makeup and costumes since The Wizard of Oz from 1939.
Yeah, it's basically everybody, isn't it?
Yeah, it's somebody's got food on their, scrambled eggs on their shirt or some eggnog on their, in their hair or some. It's a
When you,
it's a wild set.
well, and you have to think of everybody getting the noses. Everybody getting the noses. That's like all of the elves getting the ears in Lord of the Rings or something. But it's like even more because that nose face prosthetic is even more of an elaborate thing to do to everybody in the movie.
Yeah, blending it, with their face and making sure you don't see the lumps from the makeup or it's not like sticking up too far on the skin. Like there was a lot that went into this film.
Hmm.
After the Grinch leaves Whoville for the second time, the camera pans up of a statue of an elephant can be seen in reference to Horton Hears a Who, also by Dr. Seuss. Jim Carrey voiced Horton in Horton Hears a Who in 2008.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah, the note. Yeah, it's interesting as you were mentioning earlier about how this was was it the first live action adaptation of a Dr. Seuss, and so all of the success of this movie led to the pretty excruciatingly unwatchable Cat in the Hat live action movie with Mike Myers, and so it's like one great Seuss adaptation kind of killed another one, and from what I understand, that Cat in the Hat movie is the reason that going forward all of the adaptations were to be animated because they kind of decided that live action was not right.
Oh, that Cat in the Hat movie, it may not be good, but it gets some laughs out of me.
I mean, as look, I have not watched it since I was a kid. As a kid, I thought it was good. As a little guy, I enjoyed it, but I mean, I'm sure I'm sure if I watched it through some adult eyes that it wouldn't age as well as maybe the Grinch has.
Well, it has some of the adult humor and jokes and stuff,
Yeah.
so I mean, I can
Well,
I can appreciate them for trying.
and I think here's a good gauge. When I was a kid, I remember I could get an older sibling or a parent to watch The Grinch with me. I only remember watching The Cat in the Hat alone. I don't think I could ever. I don't remember getting other adult people to watch The Cat in the Hat with me. So that probably said something about how adults viewed it at the time.
Poor Cat in the Hat.
Yeah.
In the scene where the Grinch yanks the tablecloth off the table, he was supposed to pull everything in the table down to the floor. When the items on the table were undisturbed, Jim Carrey improvised the scene where he pushes all the items to the floor himself and then knocks the table over for good measure.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's just wonderful.
And it's absolutely one of my favorite parts of the movie. He yanks it and he kind of just comes back and scurries and scatters everything off the table real quick.
Yeah,
It's every time.
it's a gag that feels so difficult to have done that like you had to have thought that it was planned. But then hearing that it wasn't, it's like, well, yeah, I suppose that could almost be the only way. You can't really plan to pull because it's like if you were planning to pull the rug and not knock anything over, that would become the most difficult thing ever. Something would probably fall over every time you pulled the tarp. And so it's like, yeah, it does make sense that it's like, oh, he pulled it. It was meant to knock everything over. He pulled it. It all just came out from underneath and then he knocks it over. It's like that turns it into this like joke on top of a joke.
As like a director, what do you do when you see that happen though? Do you just kind of like look around like what? All right, well that didn't work, and then you see Jim Carrey just running back and knock everything over. Like it had to be like a
Yeah, I
laughing
mean,
stock of like everyone from the film crew there had to get a good laugh out of it.
yeah, I mean, yeah, you kinda go quiet on the set, and you kinda it's an important thing of, like, the etiquette of the filming set to kinda let moments play out because, the happy accidents can happen. I'm sure everyone knows this, but in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring, there's a famous laugh in the movie where Gandalf is in the Hobbit house and he bumps into the chandelier and he's making sure that he didn't disturb the chandelier too much, and he turns around and hits his head on the door frame. That wasn't planned either. That just happened. Ian McKellen accidentally turned and hit his head on the thing, and it's one of the biggest laughs in the movie, and it was a total accident. But like they let it play out, and he kind of just kept his composure, and it got to stay in the movie.
A lot of these, happy accidents, are great parts of like films and filmography. So a lot of directors do keep them in, and it's just things like that in this film are I'm glad directors keep it in because it does give everyone a laugh, and it's
Yeah,
it's a good time. It
100%,
adds to the film.
100%.
This is fun. Uh, Eddie Murphy, Tom Hanks, Jack Nicholson, Adam Sandler, and Tim Curry were all considered to play the Grinch in this film.
Gosh, I mean, you could kind of it's like you can see it or you can imagine it, but it's hard at the same time to think of anyone like, think about the close up of the Grinch where he turns to the camera and does that smile that looks like the kind of smile that only a cartoon could do, but Jim Carrey manages to do it with his real face. And it's like you don't see a scenario where an Eddie Murphy or even a Tim Curry is really pulling off that same energy. And Jack Nicholson, I mean, he's got creepy eyes and a wild smile, but I feel like his Grinch would just come off way more kind of like mean spirited, like just kind of like a d bag. I don't know. It's tough. It's hard to imagine.
It would have been interesting to see like
And
one
and I think
scene with each of them or something to see like how it
yeah,
would have played out. But I think Jim Carrey was the best option for this.
yeah, and Eddie Murphy would have been. I feel like he's inherently when he plays to play a character like this, he would just be too goofy. Like the Grinch has to be a bit of a jerk, and I think Eddie Murphy always just comes off as too nice. I don't know, like it's hard to imagine him being like a mean guy. It's like he's funny and he can be dumb and like he's Donkey and Shrek, but it's like it's kind of hard to imagine him being like this like mean spirited like I hate Christmas kind of a character. I don't know. Who knows? But
Yeah,
I'm glad it was Jim Carrey.
absolutely. Like I said, I think we got the best of the best to play. The best option for the Grinch for this film.
Hmm.
Taylor Momsen, who played Cindy Lou Who, became one of the leading rock singers and songwriters of the 2000s, fronting the band The Pretty Reckless. So I don't know if you have listened to any of their music at all. They're more of like a punk band, but I looked up a couple of their songs the other day, and I like classic rock. I like hard rock, stuff like Disturbed, Godsmack, Rob Zombie, stuff like that. And I'll listen to almost anything. So I threw on a couple of their songs, and they were not bad. And I was just like, she's got a super good voice and whatnot. And I would have never known it was her if I didn't see this fun fact.
Yes, so I remember hearing, let me see if I can look up the song that it is. I remember hearing, oh, Heaven Knows. That was the song I was hearing on the radio once when my older brother was like, "You know who the singer is here?" He's like, "It's Cindy Lou Who from The Grinch," and that was mind-blowing to me at the time. It's like, yep. It's like the children in movies don't stay perpetual children. Taylor Momsen grew up and, got kind of wild. There's some let's just say some racy images of her that you can find on Google in her whole rock persona and on stage and everything. But yep, she did not stay a little girl forever, as nobody does. Yeah, that song's a banger though. Like they got some good stuff.
I listened to Heaven Knows, Make Me Want to Die, and Going to Hell. And I was like, these are not bad. And I mean, it wasn't something that I would like absolutely like just throw on and jam to in the car all the time. But if it came on like Spotify or something random, I would sit there and let it play, while I drive or clean the house or whatever. I wouldn't pass by it. It wasn't too bad. So I thought that was fun that she was one of the lead singers and songwriters for them.
Yeah, pretty wild. Like crazy to see where some of those careers go.
At the time of its release, it held the sixth highest 3-day opening weekend of any film, trailing behind Toy Story 2, X Men, Mission Impossible 2, Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and The Lost World Jurassic Park. Additionally, it surpassed Batman Forever to secure the largest opening weekend for a Jim Carrey film and set a new record for Ron Howard's highest grossing opening weekend, overtaking Ransom from 1996. And this film became the first non Disney film to top the Thanksgiving weekend box office since Mrs. Doubtfire in 1993. It held the record for the highest opening weekend for a Christmas themed film for 18 years until the 2018 animated version of The Grinch surpassed it with $67.6 million.
Yeah, very impressive. Very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, it's not you're not talking, you're not in bad company if you're talking Toy Story 2, X-Men, Mission Impossible, Star Wars, and the second Jurassic Park film.
Yeah, not at all.
And then surpassing Batman Forever for, Jim Carrey. And I mean, even
Yeah.
Mrs. Doubtfire. I mean, I
Yeah.
loved Mrs. Doubtfire when I was a younger. That was
Yeah.
a
I
family
like
film
I
that
like
we watched.
I liked that a lot as a kid, and Batman Forever was one that was a big one for me when I was a little guy. That was just I think that was one that was when I was in that sort of 3, 4, 5 year range. That was one that was newer then, and not one of the ones that was like already existed basically when I was born. And so as a little guy, I had that affinity for Batman and Robin and Batman Forever. And then, as you get older, those movies don't age terribly well, but it is what it is. It's still a lot of fun. And Jim Carrey's still pretty wild in that movie. And it's interesting because it's like Jim Carrey, I could see him like he did the wild, campy Riddler in the 90s. But as an older guy, I could see him doing like a darker and serious Riddler as well that kind of worked.
Absolutely. I mean, when I was younger, I was a huge Batman fan. I loved the Toy Story films. Star Wars, I didn't get into till a little later. But and then Jurassic Park, I was huge into. So, and then I also
Oh,
loved
yeah.
this film when I was
Jurassic
younger.
Park was like crack for me as a kid.
Just had to keep coming back.
Yeah, exactly.
Got the itch.
Mhm.
All right, well that's all I have for you on the fun facts. Chris, I think I know the answer to this, but why don't you go ahead and tell us who your favorite character was from The Grinch?
I mean, it was the mayor, obviously. No. Clearly, it's the Grinch. Is there any other choice? Is there any other answer? What did we all come to this movie for to watch? It's Jim Carrey as the Grinch, and he absolutely kills it. I mean, obvious, clear favorite character. It's an all-timer performance from Jim Carrey.
Absolutely, and I chose The Grinch as well. And I mean, Cindy Lou Who trying to be like the voice for everyone down in Whoville and kind of like back up the Grinch and show him what Christmas is actually all about. She's a great side character. And the dog Max, we can't forget him. I'm a huge dog lover. So but
Yeah.
it's always been the Grinch. Jim Carrey, like Chris said, does a phenomenal job. He's hitting on all cylinders in this film, and I mean it's a performance that was definitely worthy of winning something and definitely being nominated. But I
Mhm.
mean, if there when it comes to the Grinch, you can't beat this, in my opinion, this 2000 film with Jim Carrey because of Jim Carrey.
Have you seen Jim Carrey in any of the Sonic movies?
I have not.
Oh my! In my opinion, if you're into that sort of the manic energy that early Jim Carrey had in movies like this, then the Sonic movies, all three of them, and he gets more and more wild and even better and more effective and more crazy as they go on. They are worth it for just Jim Carrey's performances alone. They're also worth it if you're a fan of the Sonic video games or if you're kind of into like fun kind of family movies and action adventures and things like that. But even if you're any kind of fan of anything Jim Carrey ever did, the three Sonic movies are 100% worth seeing even for Jim Carrey alone.
Well, I'll have to check those out because I anything with Jim Carrey in, I've pretty much liked that I've seen so far. So I'm always down to give a film a try. And I knew that third one just released or is soon to be releasing.
The third Sonic just released, and it is the best of the three.
Oh, so you have seen it. Okay.
Mm-hmm. It is it this is a I know we're talking about a video game adaptation family movie here, but as far as trilogies go, this is one of the rare examples where they kind of legitimately and inarguably get better with each entry. And the leaps are not like, "Oh, this one's a little better." It's like, "No, the second one is kind of way better than the first and the third one's kind of way better than the second one." So, definitely worth checking out. Again, your mileage varies. If you like hated Sonic your whole life, or if you've always hated Jim Carrey, then sure, you're not really in the market for these movies. But if either of those things was ever cool to you, then these movies deliver what you're looking for.
All right, absolutely. I will definitely check them out if they're getting that high of a recommend from you. I'll have to check them out.
And I don't go in for kids movies pretty much kind of ever really. I don't have kids of my own yet, so I don't go in for a lot of the sort of kiddie family stuff. But the Sonic movies, man, I can't help it. I'm only a human. I like those movies. Can't resist it.
Your nerd is showing.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Hey, Sonic Adventure 2, that came out when I was like around like 9, 10 years old. I played that on the GameCube like crazy. Sonic 3 is basically that video game turned into a movie. So, yeah, super hyper nostalgia for that.
All right, I give you my word here. I will check those out here soon because I definitely that's probably the highest praise I've heard from you from a film on here I haven't seen. So that means
Yeah,
I got to give it a go.
watch them with the little one. You'll have a great time.
Absolutely. I'll give you my favorite score from the film or soundtrack, and I just went with the main title. There's a it's a lot of slow, like, relaxing Christmas music in this film to me. I listened to the soundtrack. I only did it once this time. I usually give it 2 goes, and I only listened to this one once. And I went with the main title. I just like how it encompasses us, like, the beginning, like, being introduced to the film and, like, making its way up to Mount Crumpet and getting to the Grinch and Jim Carrey. I would love to give a shout out, a little nod to "Where Are You Christmas," sung by Cindy Lou Who in the film. That I sing along every time I watch this movie with that. I mean, judge me if you want, but I love that track as well.
Yeah, you took my answer with that one. Where Are You Christmas is the one that when I was a kid, it was just like kind of hypnotizing and mesmerizing to me and just, enrapturing. So it's like that one is like so they were cooking with oil for Where Are You Christmas, and it still stands out as like the most memorable piece of music in the movie for me.
Absolutely. I mean, there's not a lot from the, like, actual OST soundtrack to talk about from the film, but that one is one of the ones I'll always go back to and sing along when I'm watching the film.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
All right, there's plenty of these in this film, so why don't you go ahead and rattle off some of your favorite quotes from the Grinch for me?
Oh, I mean, my favorite sort of dialogue exchanges, even as a kid, was always it was always when he was in his cave and talking back and forth with his echo, and so he's saying, so he jumps back, he goes, "I'm an idiot," and then the echo goes, "You're an idiot," and then he whispers, and then there's a pause, and the echo comes right back with, "You're an idiot," and that was, to me as a kid, the nonsense, the complete illogic of that joke was the funniest thing in the world to me, and I remember all the time, like teasing back and forth with my older brother, like, if you wanted to like get a laugh and kind of like end it, you just be like, "You're an idiot," and say it like the echo was. So that's one of my favorite like dialogue exchanges. But I mean, gosh, in terms of, I mean, there's too many lines that Jim Carrey delivers. The taxi cab goes by him, and he's like, "Is it because I'm green? Isn't it?" Like there's so many just great lines. I when when I loved as a kid whenever he was slinging all the mail and jury duty, blackmail, pink slip, chain letter. It's like, oh man, like just everything about how Jim Carrey will take a line that is a nothing line and deliver it in this way that's just memorable and quotable. You can't beat it.
No, there's plenty of the ones I like. I mean, I like when he's sitting there and he's like, "Am I just eating because I'm bored?" And it's like, "Yep, I am eating because I'm bored." Or when Cindy Lou Who's like, "We're gonna crash," and he goes, "Now you listen to me, young lady. Even if we're horribly mangled, there'll be no sad faces on Christmas." Like,
Yeah,
just like the performance that the voices that he puts into it and stuff like that, and like the different tones and stuff that he can get his voice to like go up and down and just so quick. Like, it,
yeah.
you couldn't have chosen better for the Grinch. He's like, "Max, help me, I'm feeling," and
Yes, yeah, and I love a good pun. So when he goes, "Oh, the humanity," like, I'm sorry, like I'm a sucker for a good pun. I love stuff like that. He delivers it well.
I'm all toasty inside and I'm leaking.
Yeah, yeah,
Bless this Christmas music. It's joyful and triumphant.
yeah, yeah. Indeed.
There's so much from this film. I love it. But my favorite one that I go to is when he's getting dressed to go down to the celebration, and he goes, "Ooh, ah, that's it. I'm not going."
Yeah,
That gives
yeah,
me such a hard laugh every
yeah.
time.
The gags that I love, the two gags that I love that aren't really dialogue driven are when when Cindy Lou Who goes to his cave and he's like trying to psych her out, and it's like her POV, and he's just doing like "Hurrah, hurrah," at at the camera. Like I always loved that as a kid, and it's been repurposed as like internet memes. And there's one of the internet memes where it's like I go over to a friend's house and they say, uh, don't hype my dog up, don't psych my dog out, and it's like me with the dog, and it's the footage of the Grinch just being like like in the dog's face, like, so it's like that's been transformed into this great meme. And then my favorite non-dialogue joke as a kid was the running in slow motion from the tiny car that becomes this massive explosion. To me, that one just killed me as a kid. I just loved that one. It was just so over the top, so wild, just like it's just so perfect. I loved it. I always loved that joke.
There there's just so much about this film, and I mean, people who have seen this movie know exactly what we're talking
Yeah,
about. The exact scenes that make them laugh, the exact lines of
yeah.
dialogue
I
that give
can
them a smile.
I can tell a story about the last time that I'd watched this movie before this recent rewatch. Probably in the neighborhood of 15-ish years ago, 14, 15-ish years ago, something like that, some Christmas, probably when I was still in high school. And I had an older cousin who has since passed away, rest his soul. But he for to keep the language kind of clear here, we'll say that he was not low at the time. He was on a little something, and he wasn't particularly low. And we were watching. He decided to put on the Grinch, and like in the middle of the movie, he decides to make himself some hot dogs, but there were no hot dog buns, so he makes himself a hot dog sandwich by putting several hot dogs on just regular pieces of bread. And then he was calling the hot dogs his Grinch sticks. And so I just have this wild memory of watching the Grinch with my cousin who was, high basically, and he's calling hot dogs Grinch sticks and eating a hot dog sandwich. It's just like this wild time, but it was hilarious.
You missed the perfect opportunity to just look over at him and ask, like, "Are you just eating because you're bored?" Like,
Exactly. Yeah, if I had been a more clever kid, I mean, heck, for all I remember, I might have even been in middle school at the time. I wasn't participating in whatever extracurricular activities he was participating in, but he was even more entertaining in that state that he was normally. He was always a funny guy, but But yeah, that was the most memorable experience I ever had watching the Grinch. And so every time I have a hot dog, I'm always thinking like, a Grinch stick.
Jesus.
Yeah, it was a wild one.
That is all right. Every family has a story, it always makes it more fun when you can bring up something from the past with a family member for a film.
Yep.
Oh man, there's so many more quotes that we could come up with from Jim Carrey from this film. We could sit here for another 10 minutes, but oh, you went first for quote. I'll give you my favorite scene for the film, and it's again, there's so many different scenes you could choose from this film, but I ended up going with when the Grinch actually starts to care and he saves Cindy Lou, where he's like, "All the presents, they'll be destroyed, and I care." And then Cindy Lou Who comes out and she's like, "Hi, Mr. Grinch," and he's like, "What are you doing up there?" And he ends up like muscling up all the sleigh and the presents and lifts her up, and he's like, "I got you, Cindy Lou." And that's just I usually don't pick the happy ending of the film, the happy go lucky scene, but in this film, a Christmas movie, that happens to be my favorite scene in the film.
Yeah, I agree. You took the words out of my mouth. I mean, everyone who watches The Grinch, it's sort of like you watch a new rendition of King Kong and you're waiting for, but also fretting, but also anticipating when King Kong is finally on the skyscraper and dies. Like it's like you don't want it to happen, but it's like an essential part of telling that original King Kong story. And with the Grinch, it's the same thing. It's like the when his heart overgrows in size and he has the change of heart. It's like that's what the whole point of the movie is. It's like you have to have it, you need it. So it's always great when you finally get to that scene, and it's the cornerstone of the whole movie. So it's well done here, and so I agree with you. That's kind of the peak of the movie.
I mean, if you wanna go for like favorite laugh scene, I mean, I always go back to, like I said, the scene where he's trying outfits on and he's like, "That's it, I'm not going," or when he's trying to drown out the Who's singing and he's got the big monkey just collapsing on his head. That always gives me a laugh when Cindy Lou Who comes in and sees him just getting pounded by what
Yeah, and he and
symbols
he
on his hands.
and he yeah, and he holds them, and it kind of breaks and bursts and explodes. There's this whole kind of like live action cartoon aspect to the production design of this movie. Everything's like in the mail room. There's like the big gears and the conveyor belt. Like it's all just it feels very sort of like the proportions you would see in a cartoon, but done in live action. And this movie captures that really, really well. So it just makes everything naturally like kind of ludicrous and funny and entertaining.
Absolutely. I mean, this is I would love to someday do like a top 10 favorite like Christmas films, like ranked or something like that. I think that would be a blast because this would definitely be in my top 10, top 5 easy. And I mean, it's one of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. I mean, there's a lot of good ones, but I mean, this Home Alone, things like that. I grew up on them as a kid, and this is just one of those ones that I love. And Jim Carrey does such a phenomenal job that what did we what did we think of the actual makeup for the Grinch? Seeing him animated is one thing, but actually seeing the live action character, what did you think of that?
Oh, it's so good because it's so easy when makeup and prosthetics are caked on upon an actor for it to just end up being a very stiff sort of performance facially. And Jim Carrey, his face is so animated and versatile with his expressions and looks, that for them to craft a sort of makeup effect that kind of blended and fitted him so well, that all of his sort of weird faces and smirks and eyebrow stuff translates so well and comes through and is even maybe sort of amplified by the way they've contoured the prosthetics to his face. Like it's an excellent piece of technical work, because like I said, the defining one is when he turns to the camera and does that smile, and it's this proportion of this, like it's like perfectly U-shaped, and it's the kind of thing that there's a moment like that in the cartoon that's kind of iconic. And it's like, well, you can't, no one can really move their face like that, but Jim Carrey kind of can, and you can tell with the makeup they made it even more like extravagant and pronounced, and so I like it's a brilliant piece of technical work as far as the makeup and prosthetics goes.
Absolutely. It seems to move with his movements very well. And I mean, that's why you get a makeup artist to do these things and spend the money and whatnot. But like you said, Jim Carrey's face has always been very animated. The stuff he can do. There was a video clip I seen where somebody was interviewing him and they asked him, like, did they put that smile in that you're talking about when he looks at the camera and kind of like breaks the fourth wall and like does that like U-shaped smile? They were asking him like, did they like computer edit that like in later, or like how was that done? And he literally looked straight at his interviewer and did that smirk on his face, and like the crowd behind him kind of like just went nuts for it. Like they knew what was coming. And I thought that was a really fun little like 30-second interview clip that I seen. And he can just do so much with his face and like facial expressions and his eyes and stuff like that, like again, like we said, there's no one else that you could have seen playing this character in this specific film the way Jim Carrey did.
Yeah, he's literally, with the way that his facial comedy is literally almost like a cartoon character come to life, and I mean that in like the most complimentary way there is.
Absolutely, I 100% agree with you. Well, why don't we get into some final thoughts on the Grinch, because that is all I have for that, and then we will go ahead and get out of here. So final thoughts for me would be that this is an absolute recommend. I mean, you have to watch this around the holiday season for me. As soon as December hits, I'm watching, Home Alone, the Santa Claus, the Grinch, the Christmas Chronicles, things like that around my house. And even sometimes, like I said, come July or April, I'll throw the Grinch on if I want to watch it. But for a holiday film, in my opinion, it almost doesn't get better than this. And
Yeah.
it's absolutely a recommend. I think Jim Carrey does a great job. And if you haven't seen it, you have to watch it. And if you have seen it, like I said, come December, you got to throw it on for the kids or have the family members over, watch it and order some pizza and give it another rewatch, because this film it gets very high praise for me.
Yeah, definitely a great sort of you know, it's emblematic of the kind of maybe end or transitionary period of those early wild Ace Ventura performances where, the Mask is such a character and the Grinch is such a character, such a wild, cartoon in the real world kind of a performance, and it's worth it for that alone. A lot of movies are good in the moment, a lot of movies are good for the week, but you kind of tell, over time the sort of cream rises to the top a little bit, and you kind of see the movies where it's like, oh, in the moment, like all of these movies were pretty good, but now 10 years later, 20 years later, almost 25 years later, like what are the movies that you still think of and still, react to from that year? Gladiator still holds up. It was never my favorite movie, but it's like you can't deny the quality of that movie, and it's like How the Grinch Stole Christmas, like the Jim Carrey one, like people call back to it, people look back on it, like it's fondly remembered. Maybe not for people who were adults when it came out, but for the kids of that generation that grew up on this movie, like it's iconic in a lot of ways. And so, it holds up for sure. It's definitely a great Christmas entry. That's kind of all there is to say about that.
Absolutely. So with that being said, on our next episode, since this was just a bonus Christmas holiday episode, on our next episode, we will be wrapping up the Jaws franchise with the final film in that franchise being Jaws the Revenge. And then we will continue on with a new franchise to start 2025 after that.
Yeah, I'm be excited for Jaws the Revenge because everyone says it's the best one.
Somehow I don't think that's going to wind up being the case.
I mean, we'll have to find out next week, won't we?
Absolutely. So, Chris, as always, I'll thank you for joining me because it's always fun, and we've been waiting to do the Grinch for a while.
Yep. Indeed. Merry Christmas to you and to everybody. Thank you all for tuning in.
Absolutely. So again, Chris, thank you for joining me. Thanks anyone who's out there listening. Merry Christmas and happy holidays to everyone. Stay safe. I hope you got everything you wanted for Christmas, and until next time.
Hello! Hello! How are you? How are you? I asked you first. Oh, that's really mature, saying exactly what I said. I'm an idiot! You're an idiot!
All right, fine. I'm not talking to you anymore. In fact, I'm going to whisper so that by the time my voice reverberates off the walls and gets back to me, I won't be able to hear it.
You're an idiot!
Where are you, Christmas? Why can't I find you? Why have you gone away? My world is changing. I'm rearranging. Does that mean Christmas changes too?